Okay, thank you all for joining in, and again, good afternoon and good morning to everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on WeChat Rankings for the Travel Industry 2017 in review. I might just stop the video as the connection is not always as stable in China, and this might increase the opportunity to have better quality of live streaming. Okay. My name is Michaela Mentasti. I'm the marketing director of Dragon Trail Interactive. I'm based in Beijing. I've been working with Dragon Trail for about 3.5 years, and I've started my career working in travel at the very beginnings of the ADS, visas for Chinese citizens, working as a consultant for the Italian Tourism Board in Beijing. For those of you who are not familiar with Dragon Trail is a digital marketing agency which specializes in helping travel and tourism organizations reach and connect with Chinese affluent consumers online. And since a couple of years, we've also started helping organizations connect with the travel trade online, primarily through WeChat. As an agency, we say that we are 100% focused on China, 100% focused on travel, and 100% focused on digital. The company was founded in 2009, and his headquarters in Beijing, has an office in Shanghai, in Xi'an, where we do most of our R&D development and have our developers. And since last year, we've also opened an office in London and Lexington. Some of our clients that we work with include DMOs, NTOs, such as From Peru, Destination Canada, the City of LA, as well as attraction, including the Sydney Opera House, transportation companies such as Virgin Australia, Scoot Airline, which is part of Singaporean airline group, Norwegian Cruise Line, Hertz, as well as hotels such as Atlantis, as well as hotel chains, including small luxury hotels. So without further ado, we will start out with today's presentation, just a couple of housekeeping tasks. So the presentation will run for about 25-30 minutes, and then we have 15 minutes for Q&A, and I will be joined by my colleague, Sienna Parluis-Cook, who's our communication manager, and will answer your questions. So feel free to use the Q&A button to ask any questions that you might have, but we will just take all of the questions at the very end. Tomorrow we will also be sharing the presentation with you. And as well as we will make the live, the recording of today's webinar available on our YouTube channel as well as on our website. So without further ado, I will start off by focusing on the first part of the presentation, which looks at WeChat in the travel context. In the second half of the webinar, we will talk about the 2017 WeChat ranking results, where we'll analyze how different brands from different travel industries did in terms of performance managing their WeChat accounts. WeChat in the travel context. So starting off with some key data, WeChat has nearly 1 billion users, 980 million at the end of November of last year. And almost all the users use WeChat on a daily basis. We also see that WeChat has now 14 million corporate accounts, but only 40% of those accounts are active. So that's about 5.6 million. Also, WeChat is extremely sticky as an app. People use it for an average of 60 minutes per day, but actually 50% of users use it for longer than 90 minutes every day. Tencent has just released a report on how people use WeChat during the Chinese New Year holiday. So on Chinese New Year's Eve, 688 million people sent WeChat red envelopes, which are digital envelopes with cash. So that's telling us that more than 688 million users have WeChat payment enabled on their phone. And some of the most active users are people in their from the 80s generation. So in this first part of the webinar, I want to focus on some data that were recently published in a report called Mobile Travel Trends 2018 Post-App Era. The report was produced by Tencent CDC, which is Tencent's research arm, together with Tongcheng, which is an OTA that belongs to Tencent, WeChat parent company. The data here don't distinguish between outbound and domestic travel. And I would also like to point out that all of the data focus on mobile travel trends. As I said, the report is produced by Tencent, so we have to take some of the insights with a little bit of a grain of salt. So the report looks at how WeChat is used when consumers are looking for travel information, when they're booking, as well as when they're sharing their travel experiences online and on their mobile phones. So WeChat is the main channel to obtain travel information ahead of travel apps, QQ, Weibo, and other platforms. If we break it down to the different age groups, we see that older users prefer using WeChat, and younger generations, like people born in the post-2000s or post-90s, prefer using travel apps or QQ. When we look at what feature of WeChat people like to use when searching for travel information, we see that WeChat moments are the most important ones. So 75% of travel information is absorbed through WeChat moments. And that's what people share, travel information, travel pictures, and it's mainly friends sharing information. So this is a highly trusted source of information for travelers. Public accounts come in second, and third, we have ads on WeChat Moment. So when we look at the main sources of inspiration for travel, we see that WeChat Moments are the third most important one, behind sales and promotion, as well as long holidays, and ahead of online travel diaries. When looking at booking, we see that WeChat is increasingly important to make payments and to book trips. So from May of 2014 until September of 2017, the bookings through WeChat have increased by 4,000 times. That's at a compound monthly growth of 22.23%. And this goes hand in hand with the strength that WeChat Payment has gained. WeChat Payment was just launched in 2014, but it has caught up very rapidly with its competitor Alipay. So now Tenpay, which is the payment system on which WeChat Payment is based on, controls around 40% of the market, and Alipay controls 54% of the market. But we, again, might see these percentages of market share changing, not in the too distant future. So WeChat is used to book flights, to book trains, and we see that is the third most preferred booking platform. And we also know that in WeChat Wallet, Tongcheng, which is the OTA owned by Tencent, is one of the third-party providers for flights and train tickets. So people can directly book on WeChat their flights and tickets. Also, WeChat Payment is the third most popular. WeChat is the most third popular platform when booking cruises as well as cars. And we see that the frequency of people buying and booking their travels on WeChat is also increasing quite dramatically, with people purchasing travel booking more than 10 times, 17% of people purchasing their travels more than 10 times per year. When we look at how WeChat is used, we see post-60s and the post-2000s preferring to use just WeChat when when booking their trips, whereas other generations tend to use WeChat together with other apps. In terms of the services that are sold on WeChat, really they range from this application to local guides to Wi-Fi. So consumers can now purchase all sorts of travel products on the platform. WeChat is also increasingly important during a trip or post-trip. 60% of people have shared travel pictures in 2017 alone, and the post-60s are the group who's sharing the most travel updates on WeChat Moments. If we look at the preferred channel, we see also WeChat coming in first, and QQ is, on the other hand, preferred by the younger generations. WeChat Moments, with no surprise, is the preferred way to share information about one's travel, followed by WeChat groups. What do people share on WeChat Moments? So landscapes comes in as number one, shared primarily by people born in the 80s, and food is the second most important thing that people like to share when they go on holiday. So in terms of the sharing format, pictures come in first, followed by text and videos. And something interesting to point out is that people from the post-60 generation prefer to share video content, whereas the younger generation prefer to share text content. So this brings me to the end of the report produced by Tencent, CDC, and Tunchang. And I'm moving on now to talk about the 2017 WeChat rankings. So Dragon Trail has been compiling WeChat weekly rankings since the start of 2017, and we've been tracking a number of different overseas accounts across different industry verticals. We've been tracking NTOs, DMOs, airlines, and the cruise lines, and on a weekly basis, we publish the top 20 NTOs, DMOs, as well as the top 15 airlines and top 10 cruise lines on our website. And we also provide some commentary on what were some of the top articles published for that given week, so that we can share some insights about what content works best. So we have started this initiative mainly for two reasons. First of all, to provide a benchmark for the industry, and second of all, to gain insights in terms of what kind of content works best on WeChat. When looking at the results of NTOs, we see Destination Canada coming in first with a total of 2 million page views, followed by the Tourism Authority of Thailand, Tourism Australia, Japan, and Tourism New Zealand. So organizations in the top 5 received over 1 million page views, and then we see a big drop between all the other top 20 NTOs, for instance, with number 20, the Italian Government Tourism Board, which received 130,000 page views. We see the accounts coming in as in the top 5, that are quite consistent each week. They all tend to perform extremely well. And there is higher variance between the higher positions of the ranking of the NTOs. When looking at the top article for 2017, we see that this was published by Tourism Australia, and the title of the article was "Escape Chinese Summer for Winter Down Under." It gained nearly 50,000 page views. When looking at NTOs, Hong Kong Tourism Board came in first, followed by Dubai and Macau, Los Angeles Tourism Convention Board, and the Ontario Tourism Marketing Partnership. So we see already a big drop from the total page views of NTOs. Hong Kong, which came in first, received short of 900,000 page views. And if we look at the top 20 performer on the DMO's list, we see Mariana's Visitors Authority with 74,000 page views. Interestingly, for DMOs, we see much more variance between all the different accounts. So it's easy to see other competitors than Hong Kong and Dubai in the top 3 position throughout the year. In terms of the article that was most popular for DMOs, it was published by Dubai, and it featured 2 well-known KOLs, Asa and Joy Young, it basically showcased their trip to Dubai. So the use of KOLs is extremely important and was instrumental in gaining 95,000 page views for the article. The article makes heavy use of images as well as a short snappy video at the beginning, which is also extremely interesting, and it captures all the activities that Chinese tourists like doing when overseas. So it features quite heavily on food and activities such as luxury shopping, as well as in-destination activities, and it featured a variety of attractions in Dubai. So when looking at what content works for NTOs and DMOs, we see that celebrations and tips and travel guides are extremely popular. One of the reasons why Destination Canada managed to do so well in 2017 were, of course, all the tips and information about what to do in Canada, as well as broader, more soft content on the culture of Canada. And last year, Canada talked at large about its 150th anniversary and gave a lot of information about celebrations that were being held all across Canada. We see romance and KOLs also being extremely popular. The second screenshot that you see from your left is a post published by Hawaii Tourism featuring celebrity ADN's wedding in Hawaii, which received 8,000 page views on WeChat, and putting Hawaii Tourism as in the top 3 position for that specific week. We see that romance is also extremely popular, and a variety of DMOs and NTOs, as well as airlines and cruise line, really leverage romance, offer promotions for couples around St. Valentine's Day, and also suggest activities for couples to do in destination. Practical information also is a really hot topic. We see Los Angeles and Convention and Visitors Authority, which never made the top 3, that for a specific week when it announced the direct flights between Beijing and Las Vegas, its top article reached 70,000 page views. Also, information about visa updates are extremely interesting and relevant for Chinese consumers. Beautiful imagery is also key to gain consumers' attention. When looking at airlines, the top contestants, the number 1 airline is AirAsia. And it has a big gap between the second and third and the other competitors. So if we look at the top 5 airlines, the top 4 are all Asian airlines, and that's correlated also with the majority of Chinese travelers still visiting regions within Asia. The top 5 airline that is not Asian is Air Canada, followed by United Airlines. So in terms of content, airlines also feature quite heavily on soft content alternated with sales and promotion. AirAsia on a weekly basis achieves more than 100,000 page views for its top articles. When looking at cruise lines, again, we have an outlier, which is Royal Caribbean International, followed by Royal Caribbean International deals. Actually, these two accounts have started publishing exactly the same content. So in a way, we could say that Royal Caribbean has gained almost 4 million page views throughout the year. When looking at the top article for 2017, not surprisingly, it was by Royal Caribbean International, and it was an announcement about the change of itinerary involving South Korea, following the Chinese government's ban on Chinese visitors visiting the country in retaliation to the THAAD anti-missile system implemented by South Korea. Topics that airlines and cruise lines like to feature, as I've mentioned earlier, are sales and promotion. And we see AirAsia doing extremely well. And one of the reasons for Asia to do well, it's that its sales and promotions are directly linked to a very seamless experience on its mobile website, which is all integrated throughout WeChat. And AirAsia also has WeChat payments. So users can read an article, click on the link, make a booking and pay, all without exiting WeChat. On the left-hand side, we also see an example of how airlines try to engage users on a longer term with cultural topics. The post is by British Airways, which wrote an article about Britpop, and it gained over 77,000 page views. In terms of trending topics on WeChat, we see current online fads and online quizzes really taking over and being used successfully by travel brands. So, for instance, Dubai did a quiz with 10 questions, and this was modeling online quizzes, which are extremely popular now in China. The post in the middle was by Tourism Australia, and it features an app sensation. This is a Japanese app called Travel Frog, and it features a little frog, and the users need to feed the frog, and then the frog goes out of their homes and goes traveling. So Tourism New Zealand used this theme to introduce its destinations by pairing the travel frog with New Zealand-born bird kiwi, who went around all of New Zealand to look at different itineraries. On the right-hand side, we see organizations featuring, WeChat accounts featuring seasonal content. So, for instance, around the Christmas year mark, we've seen a number of organizations such as Japan, as well as Canada, talking about winter activities, and warm destinations such as New Zealand and Australia talking about escaping the cold weather down under. Dragon Trail, together with online travel magazine Skift, partnered together to provide some insight to Skift about our WeChat rankings. And as a result, Skift published a report, the WeChat Marketing Strategies for Global Travel Brands 2018. As we can see from some of the data analyzed from the WeChat Weekly rankings, we see that greater posting frequency is correlated with higher page views. If we look at the median views per post, we see that cruise lines are the ones which attract the most views, followed by airlines, NTOs, and DMOs. And conversely, we see that DMOs have the highest percentage of accounts that post less than 1 week. Actually, this is just a correlation. It's not necessarily a causation. It's indicating this data is really interesting, and it's telling us that those organizations who are most heavily invested on WeChat also tend to do better on WeChat. They publish more frequently, and they might promote the account more proactively. They might invest more in WeChat advertising. They might invite KOLs to be featured in their content. Another metric that we can look at, and which is quite interesting, is that 80% of travel organizations post less than 3 articles per week, and the top 20% of posters receive 60% of all post views. And 3 articles per week seems to be the magic number, the threshold to receive more page views. But as I said, this is more a correlation rather than a causation. So that brings me to the end of the presentation. And we've heavily focused on content for WeChat, but we just want to remind the audience that WeChat is much more than a platform for content marketing. It's a very complex app, which has a lot of features and functionalities. If we just think about WeChat payment and the level of customer service that can be achieved through WeChat, for instance, through WeChat mini programs, which have been launched at the start of last year, they're particularly used to enhance in-destination experiences, as well as to bridge the gap between the offline and online. Also, WeChat is increasingly used by travel brands as well as luxury brands to manage online inquiries. And lastly, WeChat is also used in a work context in China. 90% of people have used WeChat for work. So WeChat is also an extremely powerful tool for B2B marketing to better engage with the trade. So again, the next webinar will be coming up on the 21st of March, and it will be on Chinese mobile on mobile payments. We have 2 sessions as usual, one for residents in Europe and Asia, and another one for the Americas. So please feel free to visit our website and subscribe to the next webinar. Also, at the end of today's presentation, we will be publishing the Q4 and 2017 WeChat rankings. So you'll be able to see all the full rankings and all the data. Now we can, I believe we have 15 minutes to take questions, and I would like to invite my colleagues as well who are on the line with me to take the questions. And at the very end, there will be a short survey for you to fill out. Okay. Yeah. So okay. So far we have one question from Tai Wenjie. So the one-stop marketing, sales, and payment all on WeChat. Does it mean that operators' WeChat platforms are directly competing with their own apps? Well, I guess for any operators, WeChat is just an additional channel to be able to reach the audience. We're now in a multi-digital touchpoint environment, so it is important to reach the audience through different digital channels. Whether it's the website, which is still relevant, whether it's through a WeChat mini program, or whether it's through your WeChat account, or a third-party app. It is important to know where your audience is and to reach them through in the best way possible.
Can I just add that in terms of what suppliers do on WeChat compared to what they do on their own app, if you are a medium-sized player and you're doing well on WeChat, I think that's great. If you get really, really big on WeChat, then WeChat are going to be looking at either taking more of a profit share out of what you're earning, because essentially they're delivering the customers to you. In some cases, they may be introducing competing businesses in the future, and you need to be aware of that. I don't think that applies to most international suppliers because they're not going to be as big enough for that. But if you get noticed by WeChat, it's really important to try and have a deal with them where they can also give you additional benefits in integrating their data on advertising campaigns and things like that. In many cases, it may not be necessary to actually have a native app targeted at the Chinese market if your business out of, say, your website plus mobile WeChat is doing really well. Because, as you may know, there is no Google Play App Store in China, although most smartphones are Android. And there are several hundred actually app stores, and you'll need to optimize and be on all of them and pay advertising for these apps to actually encourage downloads. So in fact, putting the services in WeChat, creating a mini program within WeChat might be a better strategy for you. But if you have specific questions, you should speak to us privately so we can advise you on your specific business. Thanks.
Okay, the next, thank you for that, Roy. Next question by Bernie Daligan. What is the buying model for WeChat? Is there a minimum cost?
So in terms of the buying model for WeChat, I'm imagining the question is about advertising, but maybe you'd like to clarify that question and we can come back to it. If you're talking about advertising on WeChat or about operating a business on WeChat. Michaela, maybe take the next question and while Bernie clarifies.
Yeah, so thank you for your question. Sorry, from Andrea Barbie, do you have any data rankings or like bookings regarding the hotel industry? Actually, that is part of the next plan to start tracking hotels as well and get more information about the hotel industry. We can share any insights that we currently have with data directly with you by email. Okay, Anissa Chebaya, you mentioned most of the travel segments, but not hotel accommodation. Any particular reason? Is WeChat less used for hotel sharing bookings? No, actually we see, all hotel chain or most hotel chains have a presence on WeChat, and we see especially the domestic hotels in China are doing extremely well on WeChat. They have in fact developed not only a presence through online accounts, but they've also developed mini programs. Huazhu Hotel was one of the first ones to launch a mini program online, and that's used throughout the customer experience. So through the mini program, you can book for a night stay at the hotel. You can do the online check-in, and you can pay everything through the mini program. So WeChat is extremely useful for hotels, especially when it comes to customer service, when the guests check in at the hotel and then can retrieve a lot of information and can engage with the hotel through WeChat. For us, it was more a matter of manpower to first focus on these 4 industries, and then in the future we foresee expanding the WeChat rankings to other industry sectors as well.
I would also just jump in and say that for the Tencent and Tongcheng study, currently on WeChat, you use Tongcheng to book transportation, like a flight or a train, but then you go through Elong to book accommodation. And Tongcheng and Elong are actually merging now, so that will be kind of one platform instead of two different providers through WeChat. But since the study focused on Tongcheng, perhaps that's why they only looked at transportation more than hotels.
Thank you. Bernie Dalagan, okay, just clarifying that regarding the question about the buying model for WeChat advertising. So WeChat currently offers various forms of advertising. The most effective one is WeChat Moments. So these advertisement will come through the feed of WeChat users. And then there are also advertising solutions which are featured within the WeChat articles, which are more cost-effective solutions. Actually, and then the other question you've asked: is there a benchmark you can share in terms of WeChat's ROI as compared to other suppliers? We can, the comparison with other platforms might be slightly tricky, as the targeting criteria and for doing advertising on WeChat vary quite can modify the price of your advertising quite dramatically. So that would depend on the type of advertisement that you're looking into to do on WeChat, as well as the targeting parameter that you select. So currently WeChat allows to select for the gender of users, for the city, the geography where people reside, if they live in the first tier or second or third tier cities, as well as based on their interest and a range of other factors as well. Next question. Anonymous, sorry. Hi, do you have any insights for the B2B corporate travel industry? Actually, we can bring that conversation offline. We've also been tracking some of the B2B accounts. A few travel brands have such as Destination Canada, the city of LA, in addition to having a B2C WeChat account, also have a trade focus account where they regularly publish content for travel agents to then receive updates. And this is in effect an alternative channel to the digital, to EDMs and to newsletters, which are sent in the industry. What is interesting with the B2B WeChat account is also the opportunity to link it with all the key resources for travel brands. So for instance, if a travel brand is doing an online course for travel agents, that can be easily linked to the WeChat menu, or if there's any new products which are coming out that a particular travel brands want to push to the travel agents, that can also be easily linked to the menu. And yeah, we can take more specific questions and about page views and engagement offline with you. So next question by Bruce Wang. Thanks for sharing the information. Do you have any data about the outbound medical tourism business? How is the market? Yeah, I think.
We're not really discussing it at this event. I mean, we don't have specific data about Alba medical tourism. You know, we have some knowledge about stuff that's going on, but we're focusing on the WeChat content for the sectors and the verticals that we have been tracking for this webinar. But we welcome suggestions for future webinar topics to discuss.
Okay, next question by Andrea Barbie. Apart from WeChat and Weibo, do you see any other social media platform becoming extremely popular in China? Yes, definitely. In 2017, we've seen the rise of various platforms, maybe not strictly social media platforms, but we've seen the rise of news aggregating apps such as Toutiao, as well as Tencent News. And we've seen brands engaging on these platforms as well. So for instance, last year when publishing content for Destination Canada on WeChat, we also started publishing the content on Toutiao, and that was extremely successful, as Toutiao has millions of daily viewers, of daily readers. So those are extremely powerful platforms to capture the larger audience. I think the challenge with WeChat is to get people to follow the account, whereas on platforms such as news reading apps, the content is all there and it's all visible by everyone to see. And we've seen also travel brands expand into other platforms such as short video apps such as Meipai and Miaopai, and pushing out content in different formats. So not just relying on text and images, but relying more heavily on videos, which are extremely important for the Chinese market. And then I guess it would really depend on what your industry is and who your target audience is. There's a variety of more niche platforms that might be highly successful for your brands, and there is an advantage in the first mover advantage in getting on the platform early on, so it's not too crowded with brands trying to push their content to users. Sorry, I'm just going to switch to the webinar chat. I see also quite a few questions here. So starting from Tai Wenjie's question. So the one-stop marketing. No, sorry, I've already answered this. The next one, Roger Bischoff. Hello, we manage vacation rentals, and we would be interested in selling through WeChat. And I wonder how an integration of our availability and pricing works, so visitors can book directly online. Actually, that will be the topic for our next webinar. It will all be about online payment, mobile payment. So we will answer your questions more specifically during that session. Tai Wenjie, interesting to see Asian airlines are predominating WeChat views, but it is a different landscape in NTOs. Those most visited pages are not most visited destinations. Any reasons? Yes, certainly. I think you can see that Asian destinations dominate when it comes to DMOs. So Hong Kong and Macau tend to be always in the top 3 positions, and that's because they're nearby destinations, and these accounts provide very useful information about in-destination activity and really insightful information. At the end of the day, Macau and Hong Kong account for just slightly under 50% of all outbound travel trips. So you can see the related interest here in the accounts. When it comes to NTOs, you're certainly correct. We see forward-thinking destinations such as Destination Canada, Tourism Australia, New Zealand, which have heavily invested in WeChat in terms of content production, in creating articles which are relevant to the audience, and in presenting them also in a format that is of interest for the readers. When we look at Tourism Australia, it also runs highly engaging campaigns with the audience. So these are all successes that are attributable to the NTO rather than to the popularity of a destination.
I would also say that in the top 5 NTOs, there's also Japan and Thailand, which are the top countries to visit outside of Greater China. So it's not entirely accurate to say that the NTO rankings, the top ones are not the places that people are visiting the most. So it has to do with content, but also the destination matters as well.
Thank you for that. When, again, from Taiwan Jian, are mini programs the new trend in WeChat? How does this work? So just to give a bit of background about mini programs, they're a lighter version of apps. And the advantage with them is that they don't take up much space on the phone, and they can be easily accessed through WeChat, and they can be stored in WeChat. So you don't need to download any apps. They were launched at the beginning of last year, and actually normally everything WeChat does is highly successful. WeChat mini programs didn't start out to be as successful, but they have certainly picked up throughout the year. And now there's around 540,000 mini programs, and nearly 20% of people use mini programs on a daily basis. So popular mini programs are, for instance, the ones of bike sharing, Mofo or Ofo or Mobike. So people just log into their WeChat, open the mini program, and scan the QR code to get access to the bikes. The idea behind mini programs is really to connect the offline to the online. So yeah, we should definitely monitor mini programs because WeChat is investing a lot in promoting them and has improved them, and we can expect mini programs to become more prominent in the future. Next question by Pilar Delgado: is it possible to do lives on WeChat or Weibo? Starting from Weibo, yes, Weibo has an app called Weibo. Sina Weibo has an app called Weibo, which is highly integrated with Weibo, so it does support live streaming. WeChat does not support live streaming directly, but there are a number of solutions out there to do live webinar. For instance, Dragon Trail has developed a API solution for the trade to run webinars in China. So we currently run a number of webinars for the Swiss Tourism Board, Germany, and Peru to train and engage with the Chinese travel agents. If you have any questions which are specific about that, please send us an email and we can provide you with more information. Yeah. And I think that brings us, okay, there's one more question by Jessie Lee. What do you think the difference between WeChat and Weibo, especially the influential part? Are Weibo users much younger than WeChat users? Well, actually, yes. So Weibo really saw users dropping in around 2015 and 2016, and last year it made a healthy bounce back thanks to the post 95 users. So we see a lot of younger users using the Weibo platform. It is still highly influential, especially when it comes to luxury and when it comes to celebrities. So that's where netizens will go online to find out information about the celebrities, what type of clothes they're wearing and where they're going to travel. So it is still highly influential when when it comes to luxury and celebrities. WeChat is a different type of platform. Is more indicated for close engagement with brands, whereas Weibo is a mass communication platform. Those are the key differences, I would say. But we see influencers also establishing and running their own WeChat accounts and being highly successful. I would say they're just quite different platforms to engage with users. And I cannot see any more questions. Are there?
I think we're about out of time now.
Yeah. So we would like to thank everyone for joining today's webinar. And also we want to remind you that we'll have another webinar on the 21st of March. If you have any specific questions and we haven't had time to address your question in more detail, please send an email to communications@dragontrail.com, and we'll be able to answer your questions either by email, or we can set up a phone call with you. Now we just have a quick poll for you to evaluate the webinar and also give us suggestions on next topics that you would like to see featured. Yeah, we thank you all very much for joining today, and yeah, we hope you can join us next month as well. I'll launch the poll now.